of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities of sovereignty, which have now passed to me.
It's March 18th, 2026, St. George's Hall, Windsor Castle. Crystal catches the light along a table set for a state banquet. Guests wait for the President of Nigeria to arrive. The doors open first for two people. Not King Charles, not Queen Camilla. Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, walk in ahead of them. It lasts seconds. A camera catches it. Within hours, royal reporters are replaying the clip, freezing the frame, asking the same question out loud. Who is actually running this family right now? One royal outlet later put it bluntly. There was no question, they wrote, about who looked like the future in that room. Hi viewers, quick question before we go further. When you picture the next King of England, do you already picture William instead of Charles? Type your answer below, I want to know. Because 2 months later, something happens that has nothing to do with a doorway. William and Catherine are formally made grantors of royal warrants. For nearly 3 centuries, only a reigning monarch has held that power, the power to officially endorse the companies that supply the royal household. Handing part of it to William, while Charles still sits on the throne, is not a small gesture. It is a legal and constitutional first. So the headlines write themselves: final authority, handed to William. Here is what is actually true, and what is not. Charles is still king. William is still the heir, not the monarch. No coronation has happened. No abdication has been signed. Nothing about the line of succession has changed. What has changed is quieter than that, and in some ways stranger. Real responsibility, the kind that used to sit only on one desk in Buckingham Palace, has started arriving on a second desk in Kensington Palace, while the man on the throne is still very much alive. Royal commentators have started asking whether this counts as power moving early, years ahead of any coronation. Others say it is simply a father, sick and getting older, sharing the weight before he has to, the same way any parent hands a difficult job to a grown child. Both things might be true at once. That is what makes this story harder to write off as gossip. But there is one detail almost nobody mentions when they talk about Charles handing William final authority. There is already a law on the books that decides exactly how much authority a Prince of Wales is allowed to hold while his father is still king. It has existed since 1937. It has a name most people have never heard, and it draws a line neither father nor son can move, no matter how many doors William walks through first. A red light blinks on top of a camera at Clarence House. It's late November 2025, though the footage won't air for weeks. King Charles sits still, hands folded, and waits for his cue. When he speaks, his voice is steady but careful, the way a man sounds when he has said the same sentence to himself many times before saying it out loud. His cancer treatment, he says, can finally be reduced in the new year. It is the most direct thing he has said in public about the illness that has followed him since February 2024, when a routine procedure for an enlarged prostate turned up something else. Buckingham Palace never named the cancer. It never gave a stage. For 2 years, the country has been left to read his body language at every public appearance instead, searching each ribbon-cutting and church service for a clue nobody in the family will confirm out loud. Now, in this one recorded message, Charles calls it a blessing. Doctors call it a move into a precautionary phase. Neither phrase means cured, both mean something has finally gone right. To understand why this king treats even small good news like a milestone, rewind further than 2024. Charles waited 73 years to become monarch. No heir to the British throne has ever waited longer. For most of those decades, he was Prince of Wales, running the Duchy of Cornwall, championing organic farming and environmental causes before either subject was fashionable, and being quietly mocked for it in the same press he now has to work with every single day. He married Camilla Parker Bowles in 2005, in a small civil ceremony most of the country was not sure it wanted to watch. It took her the better part of 2 decades and hundreds of solo engagements to turn public tolerance into public affection. By the time Queen Elizabeth II gave her blessing in her Platinum Jubilee message for Camilla to one day be called Queen Consort, Charles had spent almost half a century defending the one relationship the public judged him for the most. That history matters now, because it explains something simple. A king who fought that hard to protect his wife's place is not going to be neutral about who gets to make decisions that affect her. And a king who waited 73 years for a crown, only to be handed a cancer diagnosis within 18 months of wearing it, is not thinking only about today. He is thinking about who finishes what he started and how much say he still gets in the answer. Charles has spent his whole adult life being told to wait his turn. Now the clock, everyone can see, is not the line of succession, it's his own body. And for the first time, the man who waited longer than any future king in British history does not get to decide how much time is left. Windsor Castle, a private audience room. A retired paramedic kneels in front of Prince William, not King Charles.
To be her son, and that I got to know her for the 15 years that I did. She said
to receive a medal for decades of service. William lifts a sword that isn't his, taps each shoulder the way his father would, and says the words his father usually says. It is one of dozens of investitures he has now conducted in the King's place, standing inside a job description that used to belong to one man alone. Nobody announces days like this one. There is no press release explaining why the Prince of Wales is holding the sword instead of the King. It simply happens, again and again, until it stops being news and starts being normal. That is how real influence tends to move inside a 900-year-old institution. Not with an announcement, with a calendar. Since his father's diagnosis, William has taken on high-level receptions, foreign meetings, and ceremonial duties once reserved for a reigning monarch. In the spring of 2026, he and Catherine were formally named grantors of royal warrants, the official seal of approval given to companies that supply the royal household, a power that had belonged only to the sovereign since the system began. He is also, on paper, a wealthy man in his own right. As Prince of Wales, William receives the net profits of the Duchy of Cornwall, a private estate of farmland, coastline, and commercial property that paid him £21.6 million in the 2025 to 2026 financial year alone, according to the royal household's own published accounts. That income, along with the tax he voluntarily pays on it, funds both his family's private life and the causes he has chosen to build his public identity around. A 5-year homelessness initiative called Homewards and the Earthshot Prize, his own environmental answer to his father's decades of campaigning on the very same subject. The warrant system itself dates back centuries, a badge companies display to show they serve the royal household, and until this year, William's signature on one would have meant nothing legally. Now it does. It is a small technical change most people will never notice. It is also, constitutionally, exactly the kind of change that used to wait for a coronation. Royal commentators have started calling this a shadow reign, a future king quietly rehearsing the job years before anyone officially asks him to do it for real. But rehearsal is not the same as authority. For all the ceremonies, all the warrants, all the widening column inches, William's constitutional position has not moved an inch since the day his father was crowned. He is still the heir. Nothing more. Not yet. No matter how many rooms he now walks into first. No matter how many swords he lifts that were never his to begin with. Which raises the question nobody in the family says out loud. If the responsibilities keep moving to Kensington Palace, while the title stays behind at Buckingham Palace, how long before those two things stop matching? Windsor Castle, March 2026, minutes after the Nigerian state banquet. According to an insider cited by Closer magazine, Prince William pulls his stepmother aside with a simple question. Is his father really well enough for a schedule this heavy? Camilla, the same source claims, shuts the conversation down. The reported reasoning is not complicated. The family is already absorbing criticism on other fronts. A king who visibly slows down, in her view, hands his critics a story before anyone else gets to write it. That single hallway moment reported, not confirmed, filtered through royal sources whose names are never printed, captures something bigger than one disagreement. It is the fight Camilla has been having with the British public for over 50 years, just aimed at a different opponent this time. She met Charles in the early 1970s. She married someone else. He married Diana. What followed was decades of tabloid front pages that treated her, fairly or not, as the reason a fairy tale collapsed. For years after Diana's death in 1997, polling consistently placed Camilla among the most unpopular figures in the royal family, a reputation she then spent the next 2 decades trying to outlast, rather than outrun. She did not do it with speeches, she did it with attendance, hospices, literacy charities, domestic abuse organizations, hundreds of quiet, unglamorous engagements, year after year, until the woman once blamed for breaking up a royal marriage became, in 2005, Charles's wife, And then, in 2022, on the late Queen's own publicly stated wish, his Queen consort. By the coronation in May 2023, she was simply the Queen. None of that erased the divide.
Spoke of the Jubilee is a time, and I quote, when once more the holy door will be flung.
Some of the public will always connect her to Diana's unhappiness, no matter how many decades pass or engagements she completes. Others point to exactly those decades as proof that reputations can be rebuilt through nothing but time, patience, and consistency. Today, Camilla holds patronages across domestic abuse charities, literacy programs, and osteoporosis research, the disease that killed her own mother. She has become, in the words of more than one royal biographer, the family member least likely to make a public mistake, precisely because she spent longer than anyone else learning what the public will not forgive. Which means that when William raises concerns about his father's health, he may not only be questioning a schedule. Whether he means to or not, he is stepping directly into the one part of this family's history Camilla has spent 50 years trying to control. And history, inside a royal household, has a way of not staying in the past. 2 buildings, 2 staffs, 1 family. At Buckingham Palace, the keeper of the Privy Purse, James Chalmers, oversees the finances that keep King Charles and Queen Camilla's reign running day to day, a household that published, for the first time in its history, exactly how much tax its king pays. £11.7 million in the 2023 to 2024 tax year, £12.9 million the year after that. Across London, at Kensington Palace, an entirely separate office manages Prince William, Catherine, and their 3 children, funded not by that same public grant, but by the Duchy of Cornwall's private profits, and increasingly by decisions about what the monarchy should look like once William, not Charles, is the one signing off on them. These are not rival companies. On paper, they serve the same institution, the same family, the same crown. But royal reporters who cover both households, year after year, describe 2 different instincts running underneath the same shared surname. Instincts that rarely make headlines on their own, but shape almost everything that eventually does. One instinct is built to protect the reign that exists right now, its reputation, its finances, its fragile peace with a king who is still receiving cancer treatment. The other is built to protect the reign that has not started yet, and the 3 children who will one day inherit it. Those instincts do not always point the same direction. According to sources cited in multiple recent reports, William has taken a firmer line than his father on Prince Andrew's place in royal life, pushing for a harder, cleaner break following Andrew's connection to the Jeffrey Epstein files. Charles, those same reports suggest, has stayed more open to eventually repairing things with his estranged son, Prince Harry. William, the reports claim, has not, and shows little sign of changing his mind. Neither household has ever confirmed those specific claims. Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace both, as a rule, decline to comment on family disagreements. But the pattern shows up in public anyway, in who attends which events, whose name is quietly missing from which guest list, and how differently each office chooses to respond to the very same headline. 2 offices, 2 sets of instincts, 1 throne, currently occupied by a man both of them still call king. And somewhere between Clarence House and Kensington Palace, a decision is coming that neither household can make on its own, one that has nothing to do with warrants, or income, or investitures, and everything to do with a piece of 1937 legislation almost nobody outside Parliament has ever bothered to read. A single sentence, released without warning, on February 6, 2024. King Charles III has been diagnosed with a form of cancer. Buckingham Palace gives almost nothing else away. Not which cancer, not what stage, only that it was found during treatment for an enlarged prostate, and that the king will step back from public duties while doctors decide what comes next. For a king who has spent 2 years building a reputation for showing up no matter what, that single sentence changes the shape of everything around him. Within weeks, he is back in public, at an Easter service, determined to prove the illness will not define his reign. But behind the calendar, a harder question has already started circling the family. How much longer can Charles keep doing this entirely his own way? Royal reporters describe 2 competing instincts pulling at him from opposite directions. William, according to multiple accounts, wants his father to slow down for real this time, worried the packed schedule is doing more damage than the disease itself. Camilla, those same accounts suggest,
I want to say a few words about my father and why I believe this weekend is so important. But don't worry, unlike Lionel, I won't go on all night long.
keeps encouraging her husband to push forward, unwilling to let critics turn a health scare into proof the monarchy is failing. Charles is left standing between them. He has told people close to him, according to veteran royal reporter Robert Jobson, that he expects to live with this illness rather than defeat it outright. The same quiet acceptance his mother modelled through her own final years on the throne, even when standing had become difficult for her. He has no interest in following his great-great-uncle, Edward VIII, into the history books as a monarch who stepped aside. Abdication, constitutional experts point out, would trigger a genuine crisis. Britain has not managed one since 1936, and it did not go smoothly then either, a fact every senior royal aide has reportedly been reminded of more than once. So Charles chooses neither full retreat nor business as usual. He chooses delegation in careful, deliberate pieces. More investitures move to William, more receptions move to William. The 2026 royal warrant change moves real legal authority to William. What does not move, not even slightly, is the throne itself. From a distance, it looks like a king quietly protecting two things he refuses to rank against each other: the wife who has stood beside him through his darkest weeks, and the son he is now trusting with pieces of a job neither of them expected to share this early. But delegation only holds together while everyone agrees on the size of the pieces. And according to people close to the family, that agreement inside Buckingham Palace is starting to look less solid than the public statements let on, especially once one piece of it turns out to be older and far more legally binding than anyone in the family chose to publicize. March 2022, the House of Lords. Queen Elizabeth II is too unwell to attend the state opening of Parliament for the first time in nearly 60 years. Two men walk in to open it for her instead: Prince Charles, Prince William. Grandfather's job, temporarily resting on a father and a son. Almost nobody watching that day realizes they are looking at the exact mechanism now being whispered about across every royal desk in London. It has a name: Councillors of State. The Regency Act of 1937 created it, long before Charles or William existed, to solve a simple problem. What happens when a monarch is too sick or too far away to sign what needs signing? The answer, written into law, is that the monarch's spouse and the next people in line to the throne, once they turn 21, can step in and act on the sovereign's behalf. Two of them, acting together, can attend Privy Council meetings. They can grant royal assent to new laws. They can receive foreign ambassadors. Because of a 2022 update, the Councillors of State Act, Charles's current stand-ins are not the ones the strict line of succession would suggest. Prince Harry and Prince Andrew are technically still eligible, but both stepped back from royal duties years ago, so Parliament added two working alternates instead: Charles's sister, Princess Anne, and his brother, Prince Edward. That leaves four people who can legally act in the King's place today: Queen Camilla, Prince William, Princess Anne, Prince Edward. Here is the part almost nobody says out loud when they talk about William gaining final authority. Even as a Councillor of State, by law, he cannot dissolve Parliament. He cannot appoint a Prime Minister. He cannot create a single peerage. Those powers stay locked to the reigning monarch alone, no matter how many councillors are standing in the room. Constitutional scholars at University College London have already asked, in writing, whether Charles's diagnosis has quietly pushed Britain toward what they call a soft regency, power moving in practice long before any formal declaration makes it official. That is the real answer to the viral claim. Nobody handed William final authority. Parliament handed a small, carefully limited slice of it to four specific people back in 2022, and William happens to be one of them. The doorway in March 2026 was never the story. The paperwork from 2022 was. But a full regency, the kind where William would run the country's business start to finish, requires something far heavier than a warrant or a doorway. It requires official doctors, official evidence, and Parliament, all agreeing on one word. Buckingham Palace has spent 2 years refusing to say out loud: incapacity. Buckingham Palace balcony, trooping the colour. Thousands of phones point upward at once. Prince George, second in line to the throne, stands stiff in a small suit, waving the way his father taught him to wave, while jets scream overhead in formation. He is 13 years old, and already one procedure, one diagnosis, one bad afternoon away from being Prince of Wales. That is the weight William is now handing down, whether he intends to or not. Every extra responsibility William absorbs from his father is also a preview George will eventually inherit from him, on a timeline nobody in that family gets to choose for themselves. William has said publicly more than once that he wants his children to have as ordinary a childhood as the family name allows, a phrase he has repeated in interviews often enough that royal reporters now treat it as close to a personal mission statement. In 2022, he moved George,
in its duration, its dedication, and its
Charlotte, and Louis out of central London entirely, into Windsor, so George could start at a regular school called Lambrook, instead of a life defined purely by cameras and protocol. Royal commentators have called it William's clearest break yet from how he and Harry were raised, watched constantly, protected unevenly, and shaped early by a public that never fully let either of them be children first. But an ordinary childhood only stretches so far inside an institution 900 years old. George already appears at state events. Charlotte already curtsies on command. Louis already waves on a balcony he did not choose to be born onto. William is trying to build two things at once, and they pull in opposite directions. A modern, protected family life for three children who did not ask for any of this, and a monarchy stable enough to hand them, eventually, in whatever condition his own reign leaves it. Royal historians point out that every Prince of Wales in modern memory has faced some version of this same math, torn between duty owed upward to a reigning parent and duty owed downward to children still young enough to need protecting from the very institution they are destined to lead. What makes William's version different is timing. He is absorbing his father's duties earlier than expected, while still raising children young enough to be shaped by watching him do it, in real time, without the luxury of years to prepare. Which means the burden being handed to William right now is never just about William. 2 steps behind him, in a small suit on a palace balcony, someone is already learning exactly how this family is supposed to behave under pressure, long before anyone officially teaches him the rules. A financial document lands online, and for once, nobody in the royal press office tries to soften it. His Majesty's personal tax bill, £11.7 million one year, £12.9 million the next. For the first time in the history of the British monarchy,
And hopefully provide maybe a different side to that others haven't seen before.
a reigning king has let the public see exactly what he pays. It is a strange place to look for the real lesson in all of this, but it is the right one. For centuries, the instinct inside every royal household facing a hard question was the same. Say less. Wait it out. Let the story pass on its own. That instinct built the very rumors it was trying to avoid. Silence around Diana's final years fueled decades of theories that still circulate today, some of them louder now than they were at the time. Silence around Charles's exact diagnosis has done the same thing in miniature, filling 2 years of tabloid coverage with guesses no palace statement has ever confirmed or denied. The tax disclosure is the opposite instinct. So is publishing precise sovereign grant figures every year, down to the pound, the way the royal household now does automatically. So, in its own way, is quietly expanding William's real legal authority through actual legislation instead of vague announcements about him becoming more involved. None of this erases the tension running through every chapter of this story. Charles protecting Camilla, William protecting the institution's future. 2 households, 2 instincts, one family trying to hold both truths at the same time without either one collapsing the other. But institutions that survive centuries, historians who study the monarchy consistently argue, are rarely the ones that avoid conflict altogether. They are the ones that manage it in public just enough, on their own terms, to stay ahead of the version the public will invent without them. The real lesson of this royal transition was never about William defeating anyone, or Camilla losing a battle she never publicly fought. It was about an institution slowly, unevenly, sometimes reluctantly, learning that the rooms it keeps closed become exactly the rooms people spend the most time imagining, and that the surest way to lose control of a story is to leave the ending to everyone else. St. George's Hall again. Same table, same crystal, a different night. This time, when the doors open, nobody records it as a shock. William and Catherine walking in first has quietly become normal, the way every genuine shift of power in this family eventually does. Whether it started with a doorway, a royal warrant, or a piece of legislation from 1937 that almost nobody had read until now. Charles remains king. He still receives his red boxes every night, working through them the way he has since long before he ever wore the crown. He still holds the only powers no councillor of state, no matter how many warrants they carry, is legally allowed to touch. Camilla still stands beside him, still protecting the version of their story she spent 50 years earning the right to tell. William still waits, technically no closer to the crown than he was the day his father was anointed, and yet, in every room that matters, visibly closer than anyone expected this soon. Nothing here required a scandal. Nothing here required a secret document or a villain. It required a cancer diagnosis nobody chose, a law from 1937 that almost nobody remembered until it suddenly mattered, and a family trying to hold a 900-year-old institution together in full view of a public that never stops watching, and never quite stops guessing either. Royal commentators will keep arguing about what to call it: a handover, a rehearsal, a soft regency that never needed the word regency at all. But the truest version may be the simplest one. The crown does not change hands in a single moment. Sometimes, it changes direction long before it changes heads.